Nobody expected this kind of drama on a Tomlin Tuesday, but here we are. The Steelers' quarterback situation just took a wild turn, and the news around Aaron Rodgers' injury has the entire fan base holding its breath. Today, we're breaking down the real story, the good, the bad, and the downright surprising, and you're going to want to hear every second of it. Let's dive in. The latest word from Pittsburgh is that Aaron Rodgers' fractured left wrist did not require surgery after further testing. That's obviously huge, but it doesn't mean he's in the clear. Rodgers is pushing hard to suit up this Sunday against Chicago. He wants it badly, but the doctors still hold all the power here, and his official status is hanging in the air. Mike Tomlin spoke today, and he didn't sugarcoat a single thing. Friday is now the circle-it date. That's the day that decides everything. If the team can find a brace that keeps Rodgers stable and lets him function like a real starting quarterback, he practices. And if he practices, he plays. But here's the catch. No practice, no chance. If Rodgers can't go full speed by Friday, Mason Rudolph becomes the next man up. And Tomlin didn't shut the door on Rodgers playing. Not even close. In fact, he made it clear that Rodgers doesn't need a ton of physical reps to be game ready. The veteran mindset is there. The urgency is there. The question is, will the wrist cooperate? Before we go deeper, if you're enjoying the updates, make sure you subscribe, drop a like, and hit that bell icon so you never miss the big Steelers stories the moment they break. It helps more than you know, and I appreciate every single one of you riding along. Now, back to the chaos. Tomlin said he spoke with Rodgers just yesterday, and you could tell he believes Rodgers is doing everything humanly possible to get back on the field. But the medical team isn't going to gamble with long-term damage, and the Steelers aren't in the business of risking their QB1 unless he's truly ready. So for now, all eyes are on Friday, and the clock is ticking louder than ever. Stay with me. The next part of this story gets even more interesting. Mike Tomlin made it clear, and honestly, I'm on the same page. It really sounds like he's open to Aaron Rodgers playing this Sunday, but only if Rodgers proves by Friday that he can still perform at a high level. And knowing Rodgers, I wouldn't be surprised if he pushes himself to do exactly that. This is a guy who hates sitting out. Last season, he played through a partially torn hamstring, fought through knee issues in New York, and he's been dealing with a finger injury on his throwing hand ever since a warm-up in Week 9 against the Colts. Now he's also managing a broken wrist on his non-throwing hand. Still, he keeps fighting. Rodgers is running out of years in his career, and he simply doesn't want to miss games unless he has no choice. So my guess? He'll try everything to be on the field Sunday. The real concern is whether that's the right move. To be honest, I'm leaning towards starting Mason Rudolph. On Sunday, the Steelers need a quarterback who can do everything. Take snaps comfortably under center, throw without hesitation, and run the offense without limitations. And with Rodgers dealing with injuries on both hands, it feels like too much to put on him right now. Hands and wrists are everything for a quarterback. And let's be real, even before the wrist injury, Rodgers hasn't looked sharp these last 3 games. Add limited practice time, maybe 1 full session at most, and the picture gets even tougher. All signs point to the safer option being Rudolph, who's healthy and ready. But if there's one thing I know about Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin, it's this. If Rodgers is medically cleared, he will want that starting job, and Tomlin will trust him to take it. So now it really comes down to the big question. Who should start for the Steelers on Sunday? Rodgers or Rudolph? Let's be honest. Finding a good razor these days feels harder than it should be. Either you pay a ridiculous amount of money for something that might last, or you pick the cheaper option and end up with blades that go dull after one shave and leave your skin feeling irritated. I went through that cycle for years, switching from brand to brand, hoping one of them would finally feel right. Some were too light, some tugged at the skin, and others just didn't feel worth the price. Eventually, I realized the problem wasn't just the razor, it was the whole experience. I wanted something that felt solid in the hand, something that shaved cleanly without leaving my face looking like it survived a battle. The search taught me something important. A good shave isn't about fancy marketing or shiny packaging. It's about a blade that actually works, a handle with real weight to it, and a design that makes sense when it touches your skin. And once you find a razor that checks those boxes, you never want to go back. I still remember when I first started shaving in college. Money was tight, and buying expensive razors just wasn't an option. I had to make every blade count, which meant learning quickly which ones were worth using and which ones were nothing but frustration. Even now, I appreciate a razor that feels dependable, one that gives a clean, smooth shave without turning your face into sandpaper. All right, enough about razors. let's get back to football. Head coach Mike Tomlin shared a few more injury updates today, and there's a lot to break down. There was finally some good news today. Mike Tomlin actually sounded optimistic about Jaylen Warren, the Steelers' lead running back. After that ankle injury, people were worried, but Tomlin explained that Warren was cleared to return against the Bengals. The only reason he didn't come back in was because the game was already under control and the staff didn't want to risk it. That's a smart call, and it gives Steelers fans a little breathing room heading into Sunday's matchup with the Bears. Things are a bit different with Alex Highsmith. Tomlin described his status as truly questionable. He's dealing with a pec issue and will be limited early in the week. It sounds like a real wait-and-see situation. If he can't go, though, there's confidence in Nick Herbig stepping into that edge spot across from TJ Watt. Herbig has shown enough flashes to make people comfortable with the idea. Tomlin also mentioned that Darius Slay, who's been in concussion protocol, and Cole Holcomb, who's been out sick, should both return this week. That part wasn't too surprising, but what came next absolutely was. Tomlin said that if Slay is healthy, he plans to start him opposite Joey Porter Jr. at outside corner. Even though James Pierre has been playing the best football of his entire career. Ever since Slay went down during the Chargers game 2 weeks ago, Pierre has stepped in and completely taken over that role. According to the advanced coverage grades, he's actually ranked as the #1 cover corner right now. Meanwhile, Slay's numbers tell a very different story. He's allowed around a 70% completion rate. He's given up more touchdowns, more yards per target, and quarterbacks are posting a much higher passer rating when throwing his way. Pierre, on the other hand, is allowing fewer than 1 in 4 passes to be completed. His PFF grade is sitting in the 90s, elite territory, while Slay's is buried down near 57. Tomlin's reasoning? Slay will step back in if healthy. James Pierre deserves time, but Slay will step back in when healthy. And look, I really disagree with that. A lot of fans do. Steelers Twitter practically exploded after the press conference, and honestly, it's hard to blame them. The numbers don't lie. Pierre has been lights out. Slay, even when he's had better stretches like the Colts game and the early part of that Chargers matchup, hasn't reached that same level this season. But ever since Pierre stepped in, everything has looked completely different. His level of play has been outstanding. That 90.7 coverage grade isn't just good, it's the highest in the entire league. That's elite territory, the kind of performance you don't usually see from someone who wasn't even expected to be a starter this season. And now the idea is to bench him for Darius Slay? Slay has had repeated issues in zone coverage, and in man-to-man, he's been beaten more often than the team would like. It's hard to wrap your head around that decision unless you consider the uncomfortable truth. Slay is making a lot of money, and Pierre isn't. That's what it looks like. Not a play your best player's decision, more of a we're paying him, so he plays kind of situation. And if Slay is going right back into the starting lineup, that opens up another question. Why did the Steelers bring in Asante Samuel Jr.? The team is acting like Slay is a solid, no doubt #2 outside corner, and Pierre is viewed as strong depth behind him. Brandon Echols has been doing a good job in the slot as well. So what's the plan for ASJ? It's a fair concern, because if Samuel is currently sitting behind Porter Jr., Slay, Pierre, and even possibly behind guys like Ramsey and Echols, then he's buried on this depth chart. In the worst case, he might be the 6th corner. And if that's where he stands, why would he want to stay here long-term? Other teams need outside corners. Desperately. Take the Philadelphia Eagles, his dad's former team. They're in the playoff hunt. They're a serious Super Bowl contender, and they could absolutely offer him a clearer path to playing time. If you're Asante Samuel Jr., you look around and think, here, I'm stuck behind players who already have locked in roles. Over there, I could actually get on the field and contribute. And honestly, if I were him, I'd be tempted to make that move too. All of this has me genuinely concerned. Yes, Asante Samuel Jr. can only be poached by another team if he agrees to leave, but why wouldn't he consider it? If he looks at this situation and realizes the Steelers don't plan on giving him a real opportunity this season, the choice becomes obvious. A team like the Eagles is sitting right there, needing cornerback help, and that's the same organization his father played for and openly supports. It's not hard to imagine them showing interest, and it's not hard to imagine ASJ saying yes. And that's the worrying part. The Steelers could end up losing a talented 26-year-old outside corner simply because they're committed to squeezing one more year out of Darius Slay. That kind of decision, prioritizing the end of one career over the growth of another, could hurt this team down the road. All right, let's shift back to the quarterback spot. because I think we've all had enough of the cornerback chaos. Mike Tomlin dropped another interesting hint today. He mentioned that Will Howard is expected to get some first-team reps in practice this week. That's a big step for him. Howard barely got any first-team work in training camp due to his finger injury. Then he went on IR, and since returning, he's mostly been running scout team plays. He suited up for the first time last week, and now he's suddenly just one play away from seeing his first real NFL action. Tomlin explained it like this. This week gives both Mason Rudolph and Will Howard a chance to get meaningful work. Howard has been around the team the whole time. He's sharp, he absorbs information well, and even though he doesn't get many true Steelers reps, he has made the most of the ones he does get. With Rodgers recovering, the door is open for Howard to get more real practice opportunities. And honestly, that makes sense. If Rodgers can't go on Sunday, something that's very possible, Howard becomes the next man up. The team needs him ready. We just saw last week how quickly the quarterback situation can change. One injury, one awkward landing, one hit, and suddenly the backup becomes the guy. So these practice reps aren't just routine, they're preparation. If the moment comes, Howard has to be ready to step in and do